Hey, Husker fans, welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me as always is Danny Gillette, and we're back here on a Wednesday morning here for another episode of the podcast. And Danny, how you doing this morning, man?
Still kind of waking up, but it's nice to get the brain started with some Nebraska news and get my day going. So we're doing good. A lot of news as always, and can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, lots of things happening as course as always with Nebraska, but we
I
got a
know.
new transfer portal commitment. We have some interest in a new potential running back for the Huskers in the transfer portal, former Colorado Buffalo. So there's some interest there. I have to mention that the softball team walked off Iowa twice last night, 1-0 and a 7-6. Hit a walk-off two-run home run, so that was pretty sweet. Always good to beat Iowa.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and before we get into all that, please make sure, if you guys haven't already, do us a favor, hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit like on the video, get into the comment section, and yeah, let's talk some Huskers, man. So Vincent Genatone, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. If not, I'm sorry. I'm sure you guys will let me know in the comment section. I should know, but I'm just going to assume that's how it is. But you know what they say about assuming. So at any rate,
This is why we
um,
write.
yeah, this is why I rewrite. But a really athletic guy. I mean, he played for my Montana Grizzlies. That's my alma mater. And didn't really play a ton on defense, but played on special teams. Redshirted the first year. Did have some interest with Nebraska coming out of high school, but didn't get an offer. The Grizz played for the FCS National Championship last year. They did have some pretty talented linebackers. I think one of them
Yeah,
is going to be going to the NFL. And so it's not like that's an easy program to, just walk into and play. It's not your
right.
normal FCS program. They do turn out a lot of NFL players. And coming to Nebraska, Genatone as a preferred walk-on, not a scholarship deal. I'm sure there's going to be some NIL factored in there, so he's probably not going to be paying this. I'm sure it's going to be one of those things like we've seen some other guys that have
Mhm.
done that in the past. But Danny, what was your thoughts, your initial thoughts on this new transfer coming in, this new transfer, linebacker, running back, returner, whatever?
Yeah, you kind of just said it right there. He can do it all. And I'm looking more honestly in this case at what he did at the high school level. I feel like that's a little bit of a stronger baseline. Yes, I know high school to college is a big leap, but like you said, Montana was pretty loaded at the linebacker position. And in high school, he was named the Omaha World Herald Nebraska Male Athlete of the Year. Um, he had 136 tackles as a senior, earned Super State first team honors, and he rushed for 911 yards and 13 touchdowns. So I think that might be a better representation of what he could do. Some guys just, don't see the field at the collegiate level. And, it's always interesting having been on a former team. The guys that were really, really good in high school suddenly seem like the small fish in a big pond. So I think, unfortunately, that's might have what happened to Genatone. But I really like this because, first, as you mentioned, he's a preferred walk on. He's not taking a scholarship, so there's no pressure to fill his spot with a scholarship. And if he doesn't pan out, get angry or frustrated. He's a preferred walk on. He's a great athlete. On the defensive side of the football, he's got good pursuit. He can rush the passer. He played a little bit off the edge. He can play multiple positions. He has the versatility on defense, which, as you know, is what Tony White likes in this 3-3-5 defense. A lot of it is predicated on versatility, and he is also a fast runner. He won the 100-meter um, uh, dash in 2022, and he also competed in the 200-meter and 4x100 relay. So there's the track athlete background that Matt Rule and the coaching staff loves, and he also wrestled. So, he is a very good overall athlete. He showed it at the high school level. Obviously, couldn't find his footing in college, but I don't think that was, because of, his own doing. I just think it was a case where he got, where his playing time, he was at a loaded position in a program, kind of like, to bring it back to basketball for a second, Connor Essigan. I almost said Frankie Fiddler. We can talk about him a little bit later, but at any rate, Genatone, I think, low risk, very high reward addition. And I'll be interested to see what he does. I don't think he's going to be, an All-American by any means, but his speed and athleticism, I think he could definitely see the field once he gets here, maybe a couple games in or, a couple years down the road.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, I think special teams is going to be where he's going to have to, earn his way, earn his keep. But yeah, he runs the 40 and 4.45, has 127-inch broad jump. So I mean, he has a lot of abilities. Excuse me. He reminds me a little bit of Isaac Gifford, just a guy that's got all the physical capabilities. So I mean, he said that he's coming to potentially play linebacker or running back. I mean, I want to me because he's 6'1", like 205 or 210. I wonder if he could eventually be a safety. I'm not sure exactly about that, but you need linebackers that can cover. We'll see how it goes. I would be surprised if he, made his way on the field defensively this year. That would
Yeah.
surprise me a little bit, and that would tell to me that would mean that either like Stephon Thompson is a bust, or but I think he's got some way to work up to that. And I think John Bullock is a guy that probably is going to be moving on after this year, so it's potentially he could take that scholarship if he wants to move
Yeah.
up. But I think specifically special teams is where I think he could make an impact next season.
I mean, the running back angle is a little bit interesting too, because I still believe we need running back depth. People say we have a bunch of bodies in the room, but like I've said before, we saw by last September where the depth was extremely thin, and ultimately that paved the way for Emmett Johnson to succeed. But the more running back depth you have in a program, the better. And so I could definitely see him carve out a role as a running back as well if need be.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see where he goes. I mean, maybe even kick returner. I know he was going to work on that at Montana. But yeah, I do. I mean, I understand where people are coming from. Where he because he redshirted for a year and then played a second year and still didn't play very much on defense. So he's going to have to grow. And I guess Nebraska believes that they're going to do a better job developing him. So we'll see kind of how that plays out. But I do think it's a good move, though, especially that they're not getting a scholarship. Anytime you can get a walk-on player, or I mean a scholarship player at another school, even if it's an FCS school. I mean, they don't have a ton of full scholarships, so I doubt he was on a full ride scholarship to the Grizz. I mean, maybe, but I mean the scholarship game is much different at the FCS level. So you have to be a pretty good player to get a full-time scholarship. And so I don't know, it makes me I'm not saying he isn't, but it wouldn't surprise me if he was on like a half scholarship. So Nebraska might even be an NIL deal might be a better thing for him. So I mean, I do understand why there's some people who are like, oh, bubble, being
Yeah.
negative as they always are. There's always some negative people
It's
out
always
there,
the
but
same people that are negative, honestly.
if you look at Nebraska, it's a preferred walk on, so he's not using up a scholarship spot. He's going to help on special teams. Like I have no question about
Yeah.
that. He'll find a way to contribute, and if
His
they can
speed
get
will be an asset for sure.
yeah, and if they can get more out of him, and it's not like he wasn't going to play. I think he was eventually going to play there, probably this year. So I do think there's a chance that he could be a defensive, on the two deep, a starter down the road. But for this coming season, I would keep an eye on, in the kickoff game and the special team stuff, because I think that's where, he could make an impact right away.
As somebody who covers the state of Montana football and high school athletics and even some college athletics, do you think there's any, rhyme or reason why we've seen an uptick in Montana athletes coming to Nebraska? Quinn Clark, obviously, Brian Bushini, Samori Torre, I believe, is also, played college football in Montana. So is there any rhyme or reason to that, or is it just, finding an area where, you may be able to find a diamond in the rough?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly why. I know that there was some connections with when Lubick was like the offensive coordinator, I think.
Lubick, yep.
Yeah, because Sonny Lubick, had ties to Montana too,
Right.
to Montana Western, I want to say. And so I think maybe there was some stuff there, but yeah, I'm not sure exactly, how that's worked out. Yeah, Darian White was another one on the
Yep.
women's basketball team.
That's
Raleigh
right.
Woosters from Missoula. So I think they're similar places. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but yeah, I can't really explain it. But it's worked out so far for
Yeah.
Nebraska, I think, pretty well.
Yeah, it's cool. Definitely cool. Especially must be fun to cover because you've probably seen some of these players come up through the high school ranks and stuff like that. And to see them come to your favorite college team must be pretty fun.
Yeah, like I said, I've interviewed, Raleigh Wooster numerous times. I watched him play, quite a bit in high school. So he was really good back then. And yes, you would never see that's the thing about the difference between high school and college is you would never think about Raleigh Wooster that he wasn't a good shooter. You know what I mean? Like in high school, that would never be on your mind. That's like the one guy you wouldn't want to give an open shot to. So that's just something to remember about the difference between high school and
Right.
college. Is like there's rarely anything called an open shot. Like a good shot in college, is a difficult shot to a high school player. So that's one reason why there's a difference in when you make that jump.
Absolutely. And you talk about the big fish in a small pond, or small fish in a big pond once the player gets to college. And coming from a small town, I've seen that plenty of times. And that's just another element that makes recruiting difficult. We think it's so easy to land 4 and 5 stars and all this, and they should be able to develop, but sometimes it's just not the case.
And so you talked about, the need for running back or potential need for another running back. A really interesting guy hit the transfer portal yesterday, Dylan Edwards from Colorado. I think this is one of their bigger losses, probably with, right there with Cormani McLean. Only got 76 carries last year. I read that he was their leading rusher with like 300 and some yards. He averaged 4.2 yards per carry. But yeah, I love this guy. He's so dynamic. I thought this was a big recruiting win for Dion when he flipped him from Notre Dame. Pete Nakos of On3 said that he's hearing a lot about Nebraska, Kansas State, Louisville, Kansas. Those are the 4 teams in Nebraska, of course, in the mix for Dylan Edwards. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's possible, realistic? Do you want him?
Give him a blank check. Give him a blank check and tell him to come to Lincoln. I mean, people will say, oh, he's a locker room issue. I saw that circulating on Twitter the other day. I don't care. I mean, to be honest with you, I think Colorado in itself has an ego issue. And, I'm not going to sit here and bash Deion Sanders, but, it's probably hard as a player not to get an ego when you have a coach like Deion Sanders. So I would want him. I would want him absolutely. I believe we missed out on him in his initial recruiting process, if I'm not mistaken, because I remember it was down between us and Kansas State at the time, if I remember correctly.
No, he was. I mean, we were in the mix, but then we kind of fell off, and then he went to Notre Dame, and Kansas State was. I think it was Notre Dame and Kansas State more, and
gotcha.
He was. He's pretty tight with Avery Johnson, I think, and they're both in-state guys. He's the quarterback there. So I mean, I can get that draw. You'd be playing for your in-state team, with like one of your friends, and I mean, they could be really good, Kansas State. But at the same time, they play in the Big 12, which I don't know, maybe that's a selling. Maybe I don't know if players really care about that as much as we want to think they do. Coaches probably do, but players, I don't think they care that much.
Right now, they care about money.
Yeah, as long as you can get to the playoff and get NIL. But one of the things is with Colorado apparently is that Dylan Edwards was worried about the number of carries he was going to get, which I mean I understand. I don't know why he only got 72 last year.
Yeah, understandable. Yeah,
but yeah, I mean I think it would cause some shakeup in the Nebraska running back room, but you can't. That's not a reason not to bring in, a big time player. And this guy would be a difference maker. I think he would be the starter next season. And just, I mean, the idea of, Dylan Raiola throwing the ball to this guy for the next, 2 or 3 years. I mean, that would be just incredible with all these other pieces we have at wide receiver. I mean, he would be in one-on-one coverage literally all day. And I mean, there's like literally he could catch 10 passes a game for Nebraska for the next 3 years. And it would just be insane. So I hope that this somehow happens. Yeah, like you said, write him a blank check because he would just be a dynamic X factor for the Huskers.
You just gave me an idea for my NCAA 24 dynasty. So yeah, I mean, I loved him as a player. I just thought he's so quick, such a very good pass catcher, so dynamic. I would love him here. I know, again, people say he was locker room issue and whatever. I don't care. I mean, Colorado, no matter what people want to say, I think it's a mess right now. And I would love Dylan Edwards to come to Nebraska. We'll see what happens. And see, the thing, and I was talking about this on one of my other radio shows Monday, was, as much as it would cause a locker room shakeup, this is now free agency. It's no longer collegiate athletics as we used to know it. It's free agency. And if you have the opportunity to land a better player, and unfortunately, the dirty side of it, send another player to the transfer portal, go do it. Because it seems as though everything's, out in the open, especially with now the unlimited transfer rule and things like that. This is now free agency. It's no longer a question of, am I going to upset player X? It's a question of, all right, player X is here, but is there anybody better that we can go get? Because if you don't have that mentality, you're going to miss out. So, I mean, as much as it would cause a shakeup, that's kind of the way that teams have to think now.
Yeah, and you got to do what you have to do to win. You can't sit there and worry about hurting somebody's feelings, or and if you think you have a pretty good team, and I think Nebraska thinks they have a pretty good team. I mean, I know Matt Rule's trying to tamper it down and say we're 5-7 until we prove otherwise, but I think that they believe. Just reading his body language and how he talks about this team and how they prepared, how they've got so many seniors, how he talks about some of these guys and how they haven't left them the poor. I just feel like they believe that they have a pretty good team, and if you think that, and they obviously with the Boone kid from Louisville, or what that was, transferred from Louisville. He's now visiting Kentucky, and Georgia's also in the mix. But they wouldn't have reached out to him for a reason. So that tells me, if they think they can get an upgrade, and I do think, if I had to make a prediction, I would guess that Dylan Edwards is going to go to Kansas State, but make him say no to you. I mean, make him take a visit. I mean, if you could get him on campus with Dylan Raiola, I think you have a shot. And that's like I talked about Cortez Mills and why, this visit, I'm not sure if Nebraska, was kind of the driving force behind trying to get Cortez Mills on campus this weekend. But, if you want to get an elite receiver, one way to try to do it is say, hey, look at this quarterback that you're going to be playing with. And they're going to have Dylan Raiola and Daniel Kalen on display this weekend. So I thought that was smart, because I did feel like Cortez Mills was kind of, trending away a little bit. And now I think this gives you a chance, at least, if he is really impressed or hits it off with Raiola, then maybe you have some momentum going into the summer. So I'd love to see them do the same thing with Edwards. Not that they could get him on campus this weekend, probably. That'd probably be too quick of a turnaround. But at any rate, I mean, that's what I would be selling to him, is a chance to be, feature back. Plus, it's like Matt Rule, you don't have to worry about running the football. You will get the carries. I guarantee it. Even though Nebraska's got the quarterbacks and all this, these great quarterbacks, I guarantee you Matt Rule still wants to be 50-50 pass, because in an ideal world, like Nebraska's going to, in his ideal world, I should say, Nebraska's going to have the lead to the point where in the fourth quarter, they only have to throw the ball 2 or 3 times, and they want to run, to win. And he's talked about that numerous times. So, really, I do think that Dylan Edwards would be a perfect fit here. But Kansas State, they're also a very run-heavy team, and with his connections to Avery Johnson, I think it's going to be a tough hill to climb for Nebraska, unfortunately.
Well, don't forget about Jamarion Parker too. I believe he's still out there, obviously. So, and he's coming to visit the 21st of June, if I remember correctly. So, I mean, there are options at running back, and there's also a lot of good reports coming about Emmett Johnson over the course of the spring. So, there's that as well. And I still would like another running back, but I feel confident, provided they can stay healthy, that the room we have can get the job done.
Yeah, that's why I'm interested to see these guys. I want to see Dante Dowdell really for the first time, and Emmett Johnson. And, like I've said numerous times, unless you're fully tackling, nothing that you do with running backs matters. So, and I know the Huskers have done a lot of tackling this time, but like, when Ohio State was out there with their spring game, thud tackling, like that's totally worthless. Like that is completely, that's absolute garbage. And I think that shows part of the reason why they've, not had as much success in the big games. Like you can't sit here and pretend to be a tough team and not go through the actual steps of being a tough team. Like Matt Rule talked about, there's only one way to get good at football, and it's playing football. There's only one way to get good at tackling, and it's actually tackling. Looking at you, Scott Frost, you have to do these things. You can't be afraid of injuries. You can't be, because, I mean, if you're afraid of injuries now, what's going to happen in October and November when you're going through the Big Ten gauntlet? Like, you have to prepare your players for that. And I feel like Nebraska is doing a really good job of that. And, I'll just say this. I would not trade Matt Rule for any head coach in the Big Ten, not one.
I'm trying to think. You're probably right. Maybe Lincoln Riley, but that's it.
No, I mean, I like Lincoln Riley, but
his defenses, I've always left a lot to be desired. So,
yeah, and it's kind of, but at the same time, I think he's starting to learn that too. He said some things in the last year that made me think, okay, this guy actually gets it. So we'll see if he does. But he's going to have to run the ball more, and he's going to have to learn how to play better defense. I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's what's going to win in the Big Ten. And so we'll see if he makes that adjustment. But he did say some things that made me, think he would be able to. I do like Dan Lanning too, and I do think Ryan Day's a good coach. Don't get me wrong, but I think so.
Mm,
I think he's okay. I think he's a good recruiter. I'll say that he's a
yeah.
good recruiter. Which I could put on an Ohio. I could be the Ohio State head coach and sign top 10 classes. That's not hard. They've done it
And
literally
actually, I'll even
their
take it a
entire
step further.
history.
I'll take it a step further. I think Brian Hartline is a good recruiter.
But I think I think Ohio State recruits itself because Ohio State, the state of Ohio is actually one of the richest in terms of talent. Ohio State has
Yeah.
always, since the beginning of time, had some of the best recruits, the most talented players. It's always been that way. Urban Meyer took it to another level. He took it to another level where they became like an SEC, style type, and that's good. It is good to get those
Those teams were
players,
good,
but
yeah.
but if that's the thing though. But if Urban Meyer was coaching the teams the last few years, it wouldn't have gone. It wouldn't have been that. It wouldn't have gone that way. Maybe Michigan would have beaten them one or two times, maybe. But Urban Meyer's not he knows what it takes to win, and his teams were tougher. It wasn't that they did have superior talent, but they had J.K. Dobbins and those dudes, and they would just Ezekiel Elliott. They would just run the ball down your throat,
Yep.
and that's what it takes to win in college football. Yes, it is nice to have an elite quarterback, but Stetson Bennett wasn't elite. He wasn't anywhere near elite. Georgia won games because they had a great defense and they could run the ball anytime they wanted to. Nobody
Mac
could stop
Jones,
them.
unfortunately, we found that out the hard way up here in New England, I think.
Yeah, he was talented. I just think an elite quarterback really does help. It raises your
Yeah.
ceiling if you can get one, but you don't necessarily need one to win. If you can really kick ass in the offense and defensive line and get some great running backs, and I think that Nebraska gets that, but they haven't got that great running back yet. I hope Emmett Johnson or Dante Dowdell can be that, but I'm not sure.
On the subject of Emmett Johnson, he gave praise to Vincent Shavers Jr. yesterday, when he spoke to the media, and I thought, Shavers' name has been popping up quite a bit over the past couple of days. We've heard, Matt Rule mention him a couple weeks ago, just out of these press conferences, and now Johnson mentions Shavers. I think Shavers has a chance to be a stud. I know we've talked about it a little bit, but just to hear, teammate affirmation of his ability is certainly holds some weight.
Yeah, he's been awesome. It's been that picture that you had too with the article is really cool when his commitment in the snow, but the end is uncovered.
Yeah.
At any rate, that's not relevant to this conversation, but
No,
I am excited. He is one of the guys I'm really excited to watch though on Saturday. Is Vincent Shape. And Emmett Johnson, I do want to see how he does. In terms of some recruiting stuff, something that just popped into my head that's coming up today, there's going to be a little bit of a disappointment for Nebraska fans with Jack Lang. He's coming off the board. It's going to be to Missouri, which is kind of a bummer. It seemed Brian Munson of Husker Online posted on the message boards that he was about to put in a crystal or an expert projection. People always call them crystal balls. There's like Sean Callahan put in a crystal ball. Like, no, he didn't. He works for On3, but at the same time, same difference. But at any rate,
it's so much easier to remember. Crystal ball
I know.
Prediction, yeah.
I know. That's why I just say prediction. I just say a projection.
Not to mention there's like 75,000 recruiting sites, and no, there's only really 3, but I don't count ESPN. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, and really, I really only count 2 because I don't really count Rivals that much. Sorry, Rivals peoples. I do a little bit, but not very much.
Their
Nebraska,
camps are good. Their grading systems are a little weird, but
yeah, their rankings are effed. But
although I do like Zach
ESPN.
Carpenter, I got to shout out Zach Carpenter. I like his work.
Yeah, I like Greg Smith. Yeah, they've got good. Yeah, I like some of the. I agree with that. They have good people, but
the writing is good. The grading is a little.
Yeah, the network overall is not great, but I have my criticisms with On3 too. But I think their ranking system is pretty good. So whatever. They each have the. All I know is that ESPN is the worst at it all. It's just terrible. I wish they would just quit.
Well, it's one of those things where they try to make it seem like they're interested in recruiting, kind of like they do with the entire sport of hockey, and then they just completely ignore it like 95% of the time.
Yeah, it seems like there's one guy doing their entire high school rankings, which maybe sucks so bad. But you always see guys that are like, oh, and ESPN's like everybody else will have this guy like Justin Pippen was a good example for Michigan recently. Like he's rising up, and the other sites all have him in the top 100. ESPN has him unranked because they probably haven't even seen him play. Which is it's fine. It's neither here nor there. But at any rate, back to Jack Lang. I don't know how we got off this tangent, but he's gonna be the crystal ball thing. But Brian Munson did say he was gonna put in a projection for him, so I felt really good about that. And I don't know, Missouri, they're doing a great job on the recruiting trail. So that's 2 years in a row that we've missed on. Yeah, I think that might be. But Andrew Sprague, I really wanted him. And Andrew Babalola, I don't think Nebraska's really in the mix there either. So I haven't. The last
Yeah,
update that I read,
I
he
wanted
wasn't
him,
even.
but
I know he didn't even mention Nebraska in the last. I mean, I think he's like Alabama. The you can tell when it goes like beyond. Nebraska's won some of those, but the out of state kids, they've really have a tough time hanging in there. So we'll see.
yeah, I mean, at least we have a strong baseline of Lyman, Bricks, Tamua. Um, what's the other one? I'm totally
Oh,
blanking right now.
Gibson Pyle.
Gibson Pyle,
Yeah, there's other one. Gunnar Gatula. I mean, there's definitely.
Lyndon Davidson. I
Yeah,
mean,
there's a bunch of guys, and we're missing ones from like last year too. So I mean, I feel really good about Rugaroli, who we
yeah.
mentioned.
Not to mention the fact that those three Bishop Gorman kids, excuse me, all 4-star linemen are coming this weekend.
Yeah, isn't
So
Douglas Utu one of them?
yep,
Yeah, so he's one I would watch. He's very elite. I think Nebraska could have a chance. His recruitment's been hard to follow.
yeah,
He doesn't really do a whole lot of talking, so I think Nebraska could have a real chance to make an impact on him this weekend. So that's a name I would kind of lock away Nebraska fans. Douglas Utu, go look him up. He's a beast, and
yeah,
I
he
think they
is.
have a shot at getting him.
Yeah, and so as much as it's disappointing missing out on the Lang recruitment, like always, the staff has a backup plan, and so I think this weekend's trio of Bishop Gorman linemen, they have a chance to really make some inroads here. So I would watch that for sure.
Yeah, they're always, they always have new offers going out. It's just really interesting how but yeah, it's Matt Rule's a man with a plan always about everything. He's always got, something up his sleeve, and it's awesome. Nebraska's in a really great place. So we're going to have our spring game coming up Saturday. We'll have our Saturday morning chat. I'm thinking let's do some spring game predictions is going to be the theme of our chat Saturday morning.
Are we
So
gonna do a spring game live stream or no?
no, I don't think so. I think I'm gonna have to bail out to leave to work early. So I'm
Oh,
thinking
that's
we can
true.
just do the pregame chat, and then we'll have to wrap it up on Monday, I guess. Unless you want to do one on your own, which is
It's
certainly
hard to
free
do
to.
one on my own. I'm sure people don't want to listen to only me talk for 2 hours.
Unless you can convince Mitch to join you.
I mean, maybe
Our
honestly,
frequent our
Mitch would
frequent
have a good time. What
he
if
is
I?
he is like our third. He's almost like the third
He
person
is.
of our crew on during the chats because he's putting in so many questions that like topic points of conversation. So I mean, that could be an option.
No, definitely, and I'm thinking maybe a stream. I don't know. Maybe I'll just watch and write, and I'll have a bunch of stuff up there because I know you said you got to go to work on Saturday. But I'm excited, and if anybody's going to the game, let us know in the comments. I'm always interested to see who's going, and I wish I could go. Once we get our big offices and we have a multi-million-dollar brand, we can fly out to the spring game or take our limo and drive to Memorial Stadium for the spring game, and things will be good.
Or once they just need to get high speed rail everywhere, then I could high speed rail my way to the game, and I could work on the rail because they'd actually probably have Wi-Fi, unlike the airplanes, which it never works. And yeah,
And it's so
that's
expensive
my
too.
dream. But anyway, it probably is like 50 years away from happening, but it would be cool.
It would be.
But at any rate, we'll be around for the chat Saturday morning. So get your spring game predictions out and join us, and we'll talk some Nebraska football. So thanks again for checking out another episode. Please hit like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Check out HuskerBigRed.com as well. And as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.